So, good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome Dr. Tajan. I was a student at TMCA. He used to take classes for us for our entrance coaching as well. And we are really privileged to have you here, sir, for our OSCE session. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Can I directly start? First of all, I thank Cochin Orthopedic Society and first of all, I thank Cochin Orthopedic Society for conducting such a nice program for the upcoming orthopedic surgeons. I know Dr. G's, Balu, Bibin, all are in front of the training programs. So I congratulate them and I also thank them for giving me an opportunity to take one of the sessions. Thank you, Balu and Bibin. So, welcome, my dear students. Usually, hip joint am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
If I am not audible, just tell me. Okay. So, regarding the hip examination, in OSCE, DNB exams, a lot of questions they have asked from the hip side. Even they started keeping one normal hip and asking to, sorry. So they have started asking normal hip. They will present you some a normal patient and they can go for any level. They can ask questions in any level. And one more thing is, even by showing one picture, they can go to all examination levels of the hip joint. Previously, MS candidates used to get one major case hip or spine like that. So in DNB also now you will see at least 1 or 2 questions from hip joint. Truly speaking, if the examiner is young man, most of the time what will happen is they will discuss with some fractures or non-unions or malunions and end up in total hip. Most of the time they will end up in total hip. And if the examiner is a old category, like me, old patients, they will stick on to some clinical test. How will you examine the clinic? How will you test this? How will you examine this patient? How will you, like that. So they will concentrate on special tests. Other part will the younger generation will go for higher end topics. Okay, but always whatever be the question, try to stick on to the classical teaching, look, feel, move, and special test. And you will never miss anything. So stick on to look, feel, move, and special test. So if you learn in that method, whatever be the question, usually we won't miss anything. Okay. When from hip side, you can get normal hip, you can get special tests like Thomas test or Trendelenburg sign. Even you can get a TB hip, trochanteric malunion, old case of a fracture neck of femur. You can get avian. If you get an avian, it will end up in total hip. And DDH, you can get Perthes, you can get, and also slippery capital femur. So these are the usual areas where they ask in OSCE. And if you are getting a real examination, at present, you have to wash the hands. Then, as per the Corona protocol, you have to put the PPE. You have to introduce yourself to the patient and confirm patient's name and date of birth. Then briefly explain in the patient's language that what you are going to do or what you are going to examine. And always try to get a consent from the patient. And you have to adequately expose the patient's legs or hip side. And when you stand near the patient, always try to stand on the right side of the patient. and always try to ask whether there is any pain first, because most of the examiners don't like doing a lot of manuals with the patient if there is a pain. So coming to the examination of the hip, I think all of you know how to examine the hip. Always start with the history. Can anyone tell others how will you take the history in the hip? Others is there?
Others,
Anit?
yeah.
Others? Anit?
Yes, John C. Can you volunteer?
Yes, sir. Sir, first, when we start with the history, anyway, we'll have to primarily ask for the chief complaint, sir.
Okay.
What the patient complaints that the patient has come with
to
the hospital.
Okay.
And
Then you mean presenting complaints? Okay.
Yes, sir. Presenting complaints.
Okay. Presenting complaints.
The presenting complaints, most often the patient's complaint will be with pain, difficulty in walking, a decreased stiffness, or and probably limping, sir.
Okay.
These are the main presenting complaints.
Okay, Johnson. Yeah, so when you ask presenting complaints, always present in a chronological order. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can ask pain, deformity, limb length, discrepancy, history of infection, history to assess the function, any history of fever, anything. Okay. And I'm not going to the details of this because if you want to talk about pain, it will take one class. Okay. So all the details regarding the pain, what type of pain, all the characters, I think all of you know. So everything should be in chronological order. Then you have to take the past history and personal history, family history. Okay. Then comes the general examination. Okay.
Yes,
everywhere. So always in the general examination requires a head to foot examination. Okay. All the things you have to include in head to foot examination. Then comes to the local examination. Okay. Local examination in the hip joint starts with the gait, then inspection, palpation, movements, measurements, special test, and examination of the spine and other joints. This is the order which we do. First, you have to go for gait. And gait is also another topic where I can talk about half an hour. I think all of you know about it. Can anyone tell some of the types of gaits?
So antalgic, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So antalgic gait, types of gaits: antalgic gait, front lumbar gait, short limb gait, gluteus maximus gait.
Okay, so I think all of you know regarding the gait pattern, the phases of the gait, everything. I think all of you know. Am I correct? You have learned about all the types of gaits and swing phase, stance, all the so everything should be thorough. Then comes the inspection. Okay. Inspection, that is the look. Whenever you get a patient in the hip joint, there is general inspection and specific things you have to see. So always, while coming only, you have to see the patient's body habits. And general examination, you have to see any scars, any wasting of the muscles, any objects, whether the patient is using any walking aids. And you have to see the patient from anterior side, lateral side, and posterior side. Okay. So anteriorly also you have to see whether there is any bruising, swelling, quadriceps wasting, leg length discrepancy, or any pelvic tilt. Lateral side also you have to see whether there is any abnormalities in the lateral side. See, most of the time the flexion abnormalities you will be seeing from the lateral side. Also from the posterior side also you have to see any muscle wasting, any scars, and always try to see the gait, so that the gait cycle you have to know. And after, always try to see the patient with in standing position. Okay, anterior side, lateral side, and posterior side. If the patient is able to stand, so the patients will be no acute patients they will give. So most of the patients will be able to stand. So always make the patient stand and see inspect from anterior, lateral, and posterior. And also see the patient, make the patient lie down and see the inspection. Okay, do the inspection from anterior side and lateral side. Okay, some abnormalities you may be seeing while lying down. Okay. So always on the bed also you have to see any scars are there, any swellings are there, any bruising, any quadriceps wasting, any hip joint abnormality is there, or even any fixed flexion deformity is there. So inspection while standing from anterior, lateral, and posterior sides, also by lying down from the anterior and lateral sides. So you have to note down all the points. So whatever you have looked, you have to confirm it through palpation. Okay. Next step is the palpation. Can anybody say what you will check during the palpation first?
So we start with local warmth, sir, and then we go on to the tenderness.
Okay, good, very good. So palpation, you have to see the local rise of temperature first. Always you have to see local rise of temperature first. Which hand you will see? The palm, or which part of your hand you will check local rise of temperature?
Dorsal aspect.
Hello?
Along the dorsal aspect of the hand, sir.
Yeah, dorsal aspect of the hand. You will check the local rise of temperature, and also palpate any local rise of temperature, bony thickening, and soft tissue mass. Okay, so always and you have to confirm whatever you have seen in the inspection. Okay, so palpation also you have to do it from anterior side. Look for the temperature, look for the joint line tenderness. You have to see check the level of anterior superior spine, Scarpa's triangle. You have to check, and you have to check the femoral pulse also. Sometimes you may not be getting femoral pulse also. That's called
vascular sign of Naruto.
Yeah, vascular sign of Naruto. Okay, so laterally also you have to see whether there is any tenderness, any mass, any joint line tenderness, and if there is any posterior mass also, you will be able to see the mass. Okay, so you have to complete the palpation. Then comes the movements. Okay, so you have to compare. You have to first move the each leg one by one, and can be compared. Okay, so always try to regarding the movements, always try to examine the normal limb. Okay, always try to examine the normal limb, then go to the abnormal limb. Regarding the movements, can anyone tell the normal range of movements? Flexion.
Normal flexion is 0 to 90 degrees.
120 degree, up to 120 degree.
120 degree.
Extension, extension.
Extension 0 to 15 degree.
Yeah, 10, average is 10 to maximum 20. Okay. Abduction?
Abduction is 0 to 40 degree.
40 degree. Adduction?
Adduction is 0 to 30 degree.
30 degrees. Internal rotation in flexion?
0 to 30 degree.
Internal rotation in flexion is up to 35 degree. Internal rotation in extension is 30 degrees. Okay. Internal rotation in flexion is 35 and internal rotation in extension is 30. External rotation in flexion?
0 to 45
degrees. And external rotation in extension?
40.
0 to 40.
40.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is a normal range of movements. And this range of movements always depends on the age, gender, and race. Remember that in children and women, you may get a more range. Okay. And in elderly, you may get less range. And even Asian population, they are telling we have more range than the normal. So range of movements always you have to check actively as well as passively. Okay, actively as well as passively. So what do you mean by active and passive? Next person.
Passive means with assistance.
Yeah, passive is what the examiner with assistance checks. Active is you are asking the patient to move. Okay. So when you do active hip flexion, always you have to, this is the old examiner's look. When you check the active hip flexion, always place your hand under the lumbar side, because it is to detect the masking of restricted hip joint. Okay. Sometimes you may get over flexion if you don't keep the hand, because you may flex it over. Okay. And always ask the patient to flex their hip as far as they are able to. Okay. And bring your knee as close to the chest as you can. That is a sentence you have to say. Tell them to flex the hip. And active flexion is around 120. Okay. So this is how your active flexion is. And
excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, you had told the examiner that we have to keep our hands somewhere. Where should we keep the hands? I didn't get it.
No, yeah. See, if you flex the hip actively, suppose even if there is any abnormality or fixed flexion deformity, you may be able to flex completely. You will not know, because the spine and pelvis will be compressing the table, and they will allow some amount of false movements.
Okay.
Okay. So you should not overexert the patient. You should not give over compression, over movements to the only the available movement you have to check.
Yes.
So even if there is any deformity, you can do more flexion without unknowingly. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So if you keep a hand at the back, now when the back touches you, you know this is a limit.
Okay. Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay. So it's not allowed to compress your hand. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, this is the normal flexion. And this is how you check the normal rotations and normal adduction and abduction. Okay. And when you do passive hip extension, normal range is around 10 to 20 degrees. Always you have to check the extension in prone position. Okay. Always use your one hand to hold the angle and place the other hand on the ipsilateral pelvis, because while extending, again you can get false movement in the pelvis. So when the pelvis starts moving, you have to stop. So extension in prone position, and always keep your hand on the pelvis. So this is how you test the extension. Okay. Then while examining, this is another area where examiners like very much. That is the supratrochanteric area. Supratrochanteric area, even you can get the separate OSCEs regarding Bryan's triangle, knee lateral alignment, Shoemaker's line. Suppose, say, this is an OSCE. If they can show you a picture like this and ask lot of questions. Okay, what is this? Can anybody tell what is this?
Bryan's triangle.
Bryan's triangle. How will you tell what is Bryan's triangle? Describe. Who is
Points
answering?
are the adjacent.
Anybody else is there?
Sir.
Okay, Shafiq, tell.
Of the related trochanter and the spine and the perpendicular line from the anterior leg spine and the line meeting point of the line joining the perpendicular line and the measuring for the supratrochanteric shortening.
Yeah, I think it's here. You connect a line from anterior superior leg spine to greater trochanter. Put a perpendicular line. Then in 90 degrees you connect to this one. This is the Bryan's triangle. Okay. Now somebody else tell me, what are the conditions causing shortening of the base? This area. What are the conditions causing shortening of the base? Is there? Johnson is there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What are the conditions causing shortening of the base of the Bryan's triangle? See, we can use the common sense.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any
non-unated or malunated fractures of the proximal femur, sir?
Malunated fractures. Okay. Even
and AVN of the hip, sir.
See, simply I can see whenever this greater trochanter is upriding. Okay.
Sure.
When the greater trochanter is little up, it can lead to shortening of the GT, just a shortening of the base. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So whatever conditions causing upriding of the greater trochanter, it can be fracture neck of non-union neck of femur, all dislocations, Perthes disease, and if you have removed the head of femur, what is it called? Girdlestone arthroplasty. Even coxa vara, if the angle is less, you can get an upriding of the GT. Coxa breva, small head, you can get the upriding of the GT. Also, you can get the destruction of the head whenever there is some destruction of the
arthritis,
head, like arthritis, Perthes, everywhere. Okay, so these are the conditions causing upriding of the shortening of the base. So okay, so these are the conditions causing shortening of the base: upriding, GT, coxa vara, coxa breva, head destruction, non-union neck of femur, all dislocation, Perthes, post Girdlestone arthroplasty. Okay, these questions are very much liked by old generation. Okay, so this is the shortening of the base. Tell me a few conditions which causes the shortening of the perpendicular. Mr. Expression Johnson. Philip is there?
So non-union of neck of femur, sir.
Okay.
Then post-septic sequelae, sir.
See, malunion. See, malunion is here, no?
So I said non-union, sir. Non-union.
See, for this shortening, actually, this greater trochanter has to go inside. Correct now?
Yes, sir.
It has to move inside. Then only this will become short. So, what are the conditions? See, if there is a central dislocation, it will move inside. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If there is a posterior dislocation also, it will move. Okay. And internal rotation. Okay, so these are the conditions causing shortening of the perpendicular. Usually internal rotation, central fracture dislocation, and posterior dislocation. Okay. And what are the conditions causing shortening of the hypotenuse? What are the conditions causing the shortening of this? Philip?
So dislocation.
See, whatever conditions we told now, in
those are applicable for this also.
Yeah, whatever conditions are causing a shortening of the base or perpendicular. Okay, it will cause shortening of the hypotenuse also. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So any short base or any short perpendicular or internal rotation, anything will cause shortening of the hypotenuse also. Okay. And
Yes,
can
sir.
anybody tell some conditions causing base shorten, perpendicular long? Base shorten, but the perpendicular is like this. Perpendicular is long. So these are the conditions causing base shortening and perpendicular long. That is non-union neck you can get, anterior dislocation of the hip you can get, even slipped capital femorolysis you can get, and Girdlestone arthroplasty you can get shortened base and long perpendicular. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then these are the conditions, or coxa, valga, and magna, where you can get all the lines are lengthened. Coxa, valga, and coxa, magna. Okay. So these are the. So can anyone tell or think about reversal of the Bryans? Reversal of the Bryans means this perpendicular is there, but this line is like this. That means greater trochanter is somewhere here. Can anybody think some cases? Reversal of the Bryans is greater trochanter somewhere here, and anybody?
Accession arthroplasty, sir.
Yeah, Girdlestone you can get. Even dislocated hip. Dislocated hip you can get. Dissection of the femoral head, you can get the trochanter going up, or even sometimes severe coxa vara. Severe coxa vara, you can get the reversal of the Bryans. Okay. Always you can get in Girdlestone arthroplasty. Okay. So these are the questions we ask regarding the Bryans triangle, and this is also another OSCE they can ask. What is this line? What is this line?
Knelton's line.
Knee-Layton's line. Knee-Layton's line. From where to where?
So from the ischial tuberosity to the greater trochanter to the
Actually,
anterior.
superior
So
spine.
only ischial tuberosity to anterior.
See, actually, we are drawing from. Okay, actually, we are drawing from ischial tuberosity to anterior superior iliac spine. Normally, the greater trochanter will be touching this line.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so your line is from anterior superior iliac spine to ischial tuberosity. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And that also you have to examine in lateral position, affected side up, flex the hip and knee to 90 degrees. So line is from anterior superior iliac spine to ischial tuberosity, and the condition we are causing supratrochanteric shortening. Any condition, whether there is any dislocation or neck of femur non-union, any supratrochanteric shortening, the DT will be above. DT will go up of this line. Okay. And remember, Bryant's triangle is more specific, whereas Knee-Layton's line is more sensitive. Bryant's triangle is more specific, and Knee-Layton's line is more sensitive. And one more line is there in the hip, favorite of examiners, that is the Shoemaker's line. Shoemaker's line, anybody can tell from where to where?
From greater trochanter to anterior superior iliac spine.
Anterior superior.
Advanced to
greater trochanter
extension.
Greater trochanter to anterior superior iliac spine. And if you extend, it will. What is the significance? It will.
Normally, the line will be at or about the level of the umbilicus.
When you extend, it will cross in the middle. Okay, this is normal. When you extend, it will cross in the middle. So, in abnormal conditions, sometimes it may cross in right side. Okay, if it is crossing right side, most of the time pathology will be on the left side. Okay, if it is crossing left side, most of the time pathology will be on the right side. Okay. So that is the Shoemaker's test. So when you complete the look, feel, movements, then comes the special test. So special tests, there are a lot of special tests in hip joint. 2, 3 are very important. At least 2 are very important. Thomas test and Trendelenburg test. These 2 are very important. So these special tests are actually for assessing the deformity, or for stability, or for limb length, or for impingement or muscle contraction. So these are the aim of the test.
Sir, I have one doubt, sir.
Yeah.
So in field, when during palpation, sir, when we palpate for the greater trochanter, we are supposed to say whether it is broadened, thickened, sir.
Yeah. You have to tell. Yeah, tell me.
Broadening, okay, sir, but thickening, exactly how do you describe it, sir? Like
thickening, actually, that is your feeling. You should first you have to palpate normal trochanteric slot.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you palpate the normal trochanter and the thickened trochanter, you will feel it, the difference. Okay, usually thickened trochanters usually happens in where? Can you tell me? Usually when there is a malunion. Okay.
Yes,
malunion, usually you will feel like it is a thickened trochanter. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Otherwise, if there is any bursa, calcified bursas, you can get thickening, feeling of thickening. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So that is a feel. That is what you get from palpation. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then, so coming to the special test. special test and OSCE. See, this is a possible question slot. So I think all of you know what is this. Somebody.
Thomas test, sir.
Thomas
Yeah,
test, sir.
this is a Hugh.
First stage of Thomas
Page,
test.
Yeah, this is Hugh Owen Thomas testing the. This is called Thomas test. Okay. Lot of questions I can ask from the Thomas test. If a picture comes like this, if it is an old examiner, they will ask lot of questions. Okay, tell somebody who is answering. Is what are the final years? Philip is Zacharias is there. Sherry is there. Sherry or Shah? Somebody?
Naomi?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Not there.
So, first step, we have to ask the patient to lie on a hard couch with in a.
So what is the no? I asked what is the position of the patient?
Supine
Should
position,
lie
sir.
supine position on a hard
legs
couch.
in-
See, when I ask position of the patient, it is supine. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, supine. And how will you do it? Procedure.
The patient should lie supine over the hard couch.
Okay.
And both the limbs should be parallel to each other. So. And
Where you will stand?
we have to stand on the right side of the patient.
Yeah, right side of the patient. Okay.
Then the examiner has to insinuate the hand, that is the palmar surface of the hand.
Yeah, that is important. That is important. Very good. Palmar surface of the hand touching the lumbar area. Okay.
Yeah, between the spine and the couch. Sir. Then we have to the unaffected side of
yeah.
First flex.
Yeah, you have to flex the normal hip. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to flex the normal hip
till the exaggerated lumbar lordosis is obliterated. Sir.
Yeah. So you have to stand on the right side. Keep your hand, and so this is how you keep your hand and flex the hip.
Yes.
And you have to measure the angle of from where to where. In the abnormal limb, how will you measure the angle?
We have to ask the patient to hold the.
Yeah, that is to hold the limb so that you can go other side and measure the limb. Okay. If there is any flexion deformity, other side it will be obvious. Okay.
Yes.
So how will you measure the effect?
The long axis between the tibia and femur.
Angle between the
Tibia and femur.
No. You see,
Ax-
you can.
Tibial axis.
Where will you measure?
Between the couch and the.
Correct. It is between the thigh of the affected side and the couch. Okay. So you have to assess the angle between the couch and the long axis of the thigh. That's how you measure the FFD. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is already told. So when was the fixed flexion deformity test described by whom? Whom and when? Anybody? Whom I have already shown the picture.
Hugo and Thomas.
Hugo and Thomas. Hugo and Thomas in here
1980s.
in 1876. Okay.
76.
Okay, Hugo and Thomas in 1876. So what is the first movement to be lost in hip if there is a flexion deformity?
Extension.
What is the first movement?
Extension, sir.
Yeah,
Extension.
extension. Okay, extension from zero to backward. It is a first movement to be lost. And what are the prerequisites of Thomas test? Anybody? What are the prerequisites of Thomas test? Who is answering?
The other should
The other hip should
be
be
normal.
John C is answering. Tell me. John C. Hello?
Should be
Yeah,
normal or unaffected. Contralateral.
So what are the prerequisites of Thomas test?
The contralateral side should be unaffected or normal.
Pardon? No, I didn't get you.
So the opposite hip has to be unaffected. I used to be unaffected.
No. I'm asking if you are planning to test a Thomas test, there should be some prerequisites or some care while doing the test.
Hard couch, sir.
Yeah, should be done on a hard bed.
Hard
Yeah,
couch.
correct. Then, see, when you flex the hip, it should be gradual. Okay. Suddenly, you should not flex it suddenly. Okay. Then, always insinuate the hand between the back and bed only till the lordosis is obliterated.
Yes, sir.
Don't get a pressure from the back on the hand. Okay. And always ask the patient to passively passively extend the affected hip. Passively extend the affected hip slowly so that you can avoid overflexion. Okay. So passively just give a little extension movement so that whatever flexion is there, it will be the correct flexion deformity. Got it? I think it's clear. Okay, should be done on hard bed. Gradual flexion is done. Insinuate the hand between back and bed till the lordosis is just obliterated. Ask for passively extending the affected hip for avoiding over flexion. And which angle do you measure in Thomas? I already told. Angle subtended in the long axis of the bone with that of the bed. So what is the basis of Thomas test? What is the basis of Thomas test? See, whenever, tell me.
It suggests any sagittal plane deformity, sir. That is the fixed flexion deformity of the hip.
It is, you are testing the fixed flexion deformity. See, the issue is to gain the access to the ground due to loss of extension, pelvis tilts forward in sagittal plane. Okay. So, when the pelvis tilts sagittally, the lumbar lordosis develops. That is a compensatory lordosis. Okay. That is to make the patient walk. Okay. So, here, this pelvic obliquity will be reverted back because you are reverting the lordosis. So, this pelvic obliquity will be reverted back. That's how the FFD is revealed. Okay. I think it's clear. Because of the lumbar lordosis, that is due to the pelvis tip forward to gain access to the ground, make the patient straight. And suppose if there is no hip pathology and the patient has increased lumbar lordosis. What does it mean? It means that the deformity is in the pelvis or spine. Okay. So if there is no FFD also, you can get increased lumbar lordosis, that is due to spine deformity or pelvis deformity. This is a favorite question. In a patient with the FFD of hip and knee, how do you test for FFD of hip? Anybody? In a patient with the FFD of the hip and knee, who is there? Naomi, you know? So,
With assistance, sir.
pardon?
With assistance, sir.
No. There is a classical description for this. A patient with the FFD of hip and knee, how will you test? See, ask the patient to lie on the edge of the couch with the both knees dangling down. Okay, got it? And then you measure for FFD of the hip by Thomas. See, like this. See, even if there is a flexion deformity of the knee, so make the patient to hang the both knees out of the couch. Then you do the flexion FFD like Thomas test. Okay, so that you can get the, see whatever you are seeing, the FFD of the hip. Okay, got it?
Yes, sir.
And somebody tell me what are the drawbacks of Thomas test? Anybody? Drawbacks of Thomas test? See, it is not easy to perform in painful hips. It is not easy. And it is not easy to perform in obese patients. And it is difficult to perform in ankylosed knees. And it is difficult to perform in bilateral cases. Okay. Got it? So it is not easy to perform in painful hips, not easy to perform in obese patients, not easy to perform in an ankylosed knee, and it is difficult to perform in bilateral cases. And then if there is a bilateral FFD, how do you measure the FFD in bilateral affection of the hip? Anybody?
Prone
Anybody is-
position, sir.
Pardon?
Prone position.
Yeah, in prone position, tell me. In prone position, make the patient to
With-
lie with the trunk on the couch and ask him to support his knees on the examiner's hand.
And okay.
And then gradually extend the thigh. You can feel the resistance. At this point, mark the angle between the trunk and thigh. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And you can see the obliteration of the lotus. So you do it. Make the patient. Sorry. Make the patient lie down prone. You hang both the limbs and keep your hand or the knee, and one by one you can extend the knees to see that how much flexion is there. Then you can, okay. I think it's clear. Is it clear? Anybody? Nami, is it clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear, sir.
Okay. So, is there any conditions you get the false positive Thomas test? Anybody? Gautam is there? Okay, see, you can get false positive Thomas test in cases of fixed pelvic obliquity, as in scoliosis and polio. And also you can get false positivity because of the exaggerated lordosis due to pregnancy, postural abnormalities, and spondylolisthesis. Okay. And remember, this test should not be performed on patients who have had a hip replacement, as it can cause a dislocation. And few more questions in this area. What is free flexion? Anybody? Free flexion? See, it is the range of flexion beyond the fixed flexion deformity. Okay. It is the range of flexion beyond the fixed flexion deformity. And what is the total range of flexion? This is a simple question. What is the total range of flexion? But is there?
Degree of FFD2.
Total range? That is the angle, that is the total sum of the FFD plus free flexion. Okay. It is a sum of total fixed flexion deformity and free flexion. That's called total range. Okay. Then one more test is there for the FFD, that is called Staheley prone extension test. Can anybody tell how will you do it? Staheley prone extension test. Anybody is there?
Sir, is it for bilateral FFD of the hip?
How will you do it?
Patient has to lie prone, sir.
Yeah, prone position.
And the knees has to be dangling down.
Correct. Hip and knee, both dangling beyond the end of the examination table. Then place one hand over the sacrum. You place your one hand over the sacrum to stabilize the patient and to detect the pelvic motion. And gently extend the testing lower limb till pelvis starts to move. And you have to measure the angle between the long axis of the thigh and long axis of the examination couch. Okay. So the angle between the thigh and the table is the FFD. This is how you do it. Okay, make the patient lie down prone with both hips and knees dangling, and keep your hand over the pelvis. You have to stabilize it, and you have to just extend so that you get the movement of the pelvis. When you get the starting of movement of the pelvis, stop it. Then you measure the angle between thigh and the couch. Okay. So this is called Staheley prone extension test. So coming to the another OSCE. This is also a favorite topic of examiners. What is this? What is this test?
Trendelenburg test.
Yeah, Trendelenburg test. So what you are seeing, the patient is standing on. Can anybody tell Trendelenburg test? Shafiq.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Ask the patient to one limb, and if the opposite side dips, normally the opposite side will go up. If it dips, it means the abduct.
Yeah, abductor on which
Abductor.
side is weak? Which side is weak?
That side means
See, normally,
weight bearing side.
yeah, normally
Weight bearing
when a patient stands,
Hmm.
normally opposite side goes up, pelvis tilts.
Okay, yeah.
So if the abductor mechanism is weak, pelvis will abduct. So who described? That is Frederick Tenlenburg in 1894. So patient's position is
Standing
standing. Where the examiner will stand?
behind.
Yeah, usually if the patient can stand alone without support, if the patient can stand alone, examiner can stand behind.
Yeah.
Okay. If the patient cannot stand alone, examiner has to stand in the front and hold the hands. Okay. Then this is how you do it. You have to see the. So what is the interpretation? Normally the pelvis tilts up, and if there is abductor mechanism weak, you can get a pelvis drop. Okay. So you are examining the dropping of the pelvis as well as sometimes you get some asymmetric gluteal folds. Okay. What are the conditions causing asymmetric gluteal folds?
DDH.
Yeah, DDH. Then DDH, that is the most common. Then muscular atrophy, pelvic obliquity, and limb length discrepancy. These are the conditions where you get asymmetrical gluteal folds. There are a few fallacies regarding the Tenlenburg test. You can get a false positivity in adduction or abduction deformity. Usually, if there is an abduction or adduction deformity, usually you don't do the Tenlenburg test. Okay. And also you can get quadratus paralysis and painful lesions of the sacroiliac joint. And somebody tell me what are the prerequisites of doing Tenlenburg test? Just like prerequisites for the fixed flexion deformity, Thomas said there is also few prerequisites of doing Tenlenburg test. What are the prerequisites?
So 2Ds, 2Ps and 2Bs. 2Ds in any dislocation of the hip.
Yeah, patient could stand and bear weight. Okay. Patient
Painless hip.
Patient should stand. And then
painless hip. Patient can stand up at least for 30 seconds.
Yeah, patient should stand for at least 30 seconds. Then
there should not be any coronal plane deformities.
There should not be any
coronal plane deformity.
Yeah, usually there should not be any ankylosis or there should not be any abduction or adduction deformities. Okay, so these are the prerequisites. Patient could stand and bear weight, and patient should lift the limb at least for 30 seconds, and he should not have any ankylosis and should not have any abduction or adduction deformity. Okay, so what is the basis of this test, Tenlenburg test? See, what is the basis of the Tenlenburg test? This is a favorite topic for the examiners.
To see if the hip abductor mechanism is maintained or not.
Yeah, hip joint, actually, this hip joint work as a lever. Okay, with the fulcrum, the neck and the abductors are the lever arm. Okay, so actually, this is the basis of this test. Okay. So, what are the conditions where Tenlenburg tests are positive? Anybody?
Superior gluteal nerve injury.
Gluteal weakness, muscle weakness. Okay, then always tell the common things first.
Weakness of the abductor.
Abductor weakness. Okay, great. Abductor weakness, that is the gluteal weakness. You can get in muscular dystrophies, motor neuron diseases, or polio, or any injuries to the nerves, anything. Okay, anything else?
Then dislocation of hip, painful hip,
Pardon?
painful hip.
Dislocation of the hip, will you test? Will you test Trendelenburg test? Here, dislocation, the patient will be able to stand.
The chronic.
Hmm?
Okay, sir.
No, the patient will not be able to stand. In an acute dislocation, patient will not be able to stand. Okay. So other conditions are gluteal inhibition, that is pain. Pain arising from the hip joint. Then also fracture neck of femur. Actually, it is a non-union neck of femur. You may be able to test Coxa vara, Perthes disease, and DDH. Okay. So these are the conditions causing Trendelenburg. Actually, there is an article in JBJS from Palakkad, Dr. Vasudevan's article, that was in 1997 article. And he has proved that even the conditions affecting the knee joint can cause Trendelenburg positivity. Okay, so you have to tell in exam these are the conditions causing Trendelenburg positive. And one more question: how will you palpate anterior superior iliac spine? Anybody?
So we will have to first palpate for the pubic tubercle.
Pubic symphysis. Okay.
Pubic symphysis.
Yeah. From pubic symphysis.
Along the inguinal ligament.
Pass your hand from the pubic symphysis along the inguinal ligaments up to the iliac bone. Okay. And the first most prominent point is the anterior superior iliac spine. Okay. One of the favorite questions of examiners. So pass your hand from pubic symphysis along the inguinal ligaments up to iliac bone. And the first most prominent point is anterior superior iliac spine. Okay.
Okay, sir.
What do you mark anterior superior iliac spine and not any other body prominence? Most of them, we mark any hip case, we mark the anterior superior spine. Why? Anybody? Symbol.
It's not
In relation to the hip joint. Okay. In relation to the hip joint, this is the nearest bony point in the plane of the hip joint. Even though it lies a little higher than the center of axis of the hip joint, it is the nearest bony point. Okay. So, if you get an examination case of hip joint, these are Thomas test, Trendelenburg test, Bryan's triangle. These are the three important things. This I am not going to for detail. For stability, you have to check the telescopy test. And there are two tests, Ortolani and Barlow. Where do you check this Ortolani and Barlow?
DDH, sir.
DDH. And regarding the limb length, you have Galeazzi test and Alice test. And regarding the impingement and contractures, you have Faber, Ober, and Eli. Okay. So if it is a normal hip, to complete the examination, you have to tell the examiner that tell the patient that the examination is finished, and you have to thank the patient, and you have to dispose the PP kit, and you have to summarize your findings. Like today, I have examined Mr. Smith, a 32-year-old male, like a general examination, assessment of lower limbs, revealed normal gait, normal hip appearance, range of movement, normal, like that. And to the examiner, you can tell, for completeness, I would like to perform the following further assessments and investigations, like assessment of neurovascular examination. I would like to examine the lumbar spine and knee joint, and also I will like to get some
Exam.
X-rays and MRI.
Imaging.
Okay. So this is about the. Now coming to the what is the time limit I can go? I have 2-3 more OSCEs like DDH, Perthes, and slip precapital femoral epiphysis.
Dr. Tajan,
Yeah.
you can take maybe 5 or 10 minutes more, because we normally conduct for an hour also.
This.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think we can stop. If we get one more day later or next batch onwards, we will take 2 days.
Yeah, sure. We'll like to have more of your sessions. But if you take too much time, then normally these guys' attention span is limited.
Okay. Then, I will do one thing anyway. I will fast. I will go fast. Few more slides. Okay. So this is. Can anybody tell findings? Okay. I will do one thing. I will go fast. This is a bilateral DDH. Yeah, bilateral DDH. And most of the time, they ask like this, like a 4-year-old child, or usually the age group is 0 to 4 or 0 to 5 years. Usually the patients will be presenting early. So age group is important. In the bilateral DDH, you will get waddling gait, trochanteric upriding, adductor contractures. I think these slides are being recorded, so you can read it later. No issues. Narat sign will be positive. Barlow's and Ortolani test will be positive, and Nillerton's line crosses below the umbilicus. And if you see this X-ray, this is a unilateral case. So in unilateral case, the features will be asymmetrical gluteal fall, Galeazzi test positive, Tellenbach test positive, increased lordosis, and apparent shortening limited abduction and outlining. Okay. There are questions, that is, what are the obstacles for reduction? These are the pericephalic insertion of the capsule, ligamentum teres hypertrophy, inverted limbus, fibrofatty debris filling the hip joint, that's called pulvinar, adhesion and pull of transverse acetal. These are the obstacles for reduction. If you take an X-ray, you can see if you draw 2 lines, this is Perkins lines and this is Hilgen-Reines line. Usually the normal hip will be in the inframedial quadrant, and in dislocation it will be outside. Okay. Also, this Shenden's line will be broken. This will be the X-ray findings. So you know Barlow's test and Ortolani. One is a dislocatable hip, another is a relocatable hip. What are the relevant investigations? So you can, in early phases, you can perform the ultrasound and you have to do pelvic X-ray. Okay. And management depends on the age. Under 6 months, Pavlik harness, 6 to 8 months, close reduction and spica. Greater than, you have to go for operative management. And these are what are the indications for operative reduction? That's where the head persistently resting on the triradiate cartilage. Arc of reduction less than 25 degrees. Head laterally placed 6 weeks. Failed attempts of close reduction. In complications include recurrence. You can get sometimes femoral nerve palsy, and also you have to note vascular necrosis. I think as per your genes, just we can stop it.
No, yeah, I think if they have some questions, they can ask you.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody is having any questions?
Not me, anybody wants to ask some questions?
or also if anybody wants any queries regarding any questions, you can have my phone number. Balu, you can give my phone number, and or you can mail me drtajan@gmail.com. If there is any queries from this part, you can ask now.
Any doubts?
Hope I did not bore you.
No, sir, it was a great session. It was a very important topic on hip.
Yeah, that's it's a clinical. If the examiner is old, definitely this part will come.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
I think there are no more questions, sir. Shall we wind up?
Yeah. Okay. No issues.
So thank you, sir, for spending your time with us
Pleasure.
on an important topic. Yes, sir.
Actually, it is pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And all the best to all of you, those who are appearing exam this month. Hope we will catch up the others with the other sessions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you, Balu.
Thank you so much, sir.
And good night.
Good night.